So our next speaker shows how to build that resilience. He's the Director of Manufacturers Association Nigeria. Please welcome Mr. Segun Ajayi-Kadir, MNI.
Thank you very much. I think so that we can be culturally linked, I would say the true way that my name is called. My name is Segun Ajayi-Kadir, MNI. The MNI is what I got from my alumni, the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies in Nigeria. It's Nigeria's think tank institution established by government to think for it. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to, on behalf of all of us, thank David, who never allows you to rest, and who is always bumping into you and not allowing you to fail to see the energy that has continued to drive him. As men of faith, we believe that the Lord is with you and that what we seek to achieve for our peoples in the Caribbean and in Africa will be duly realized. It is an honor to join you again today at this year's summit because I was here last year. Over the past 5 years, the world has faced several disruptions that tested the sustainability of the nations. First, it was a pandemic that froze global logistics. Then came the war that rattled energy and commodity markets, followed by currency swings that redefined competitiveness, and later by trade protectionism and policy reversals that caught many firms and suppliers off guard. In the midst of these geopolitical turbulences and economic shocks, arose the imperative for us, Africans and the Caribbeans. How do supply shocks, foreign exchange volatility, and sudden policy shifts stop being catastrophes and start becoming catalysts for economic renaissance? This is the key issue for a resilient economy. It is on this note that I say I'm greatly honored to speak briefly on the theme, Building Resilient Economies, Resilience in the Face of Global Crisis. I believe that this theme is critically relevant to the shared Afro-Caribbean development aspirations. And this summit is a perfect platform to ideate and push for action. We have a shared history of struggles and unparalleled human resilience. Now is the time to make it count for the prosperity of our long-suffering people. In post-COVID 2021, according to the IMF estimates, global supply disruption wiped off roughly 3 to 4% of global manufacturing output. The factory and the shipping lanes disruptions expose how deeply interconnected and vulnerable global value chains have become. For Africa and the Caribbean, the impact was even more severe, amplified by our dependence on imported inputs and long, fragile logistic routes. Then came the foreign exchange shocks across Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and much of the Caribbean. Rapid currency depreciation against the US dollars forced manufacturers and businesses into painful trade-offs, whether to absorb rising input costs, pass them on to consumers, or halt production altogether. In some cases, imported inputs rose by as much as 40 to 60% in local currency terms within a few months. This volatility was especially damaging because of our limited domestic production capacities and high import dependency. It is further aggravated by poorly and need-time policy reform responses across the continent and the economies. These disruptions are the realities confronting our economies today. Yet, resilience begins when we move beyond seeing those disruptions as crises and reframing them as strategic opportunities. Each shock exposes structural vulnerabilities within supply chains, production networks, and governance systems, requiring a data-driven basis for intervention. The critical task is to convert these signals into deliberate strategic strategies that seeks to insulate sectors from future shocks and enhance competitiveness, productivity, and systemic robustness. The countries that rebound fastest from the crisis are those with institutional facilities that can convert pressures into capabilities. Amid foreign exchange shortages and logistics bottlenecks, Ethiopia utilized a well-coordinated and investment-focused policy to double down on clustered industrial infrastructure and created over 30,000 jobs, built a functional local supply network, and achieved increased export earnings. Similarly, Nigeria's local content policy in the oil and gas sector turned a vulnerability, decades of imported engineering services, into a structured domestic opportunity. The Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Development Act of 2010 created legal room for local firms to participate in fabrication, logistics, and engineering. Within a decade, local participation in oil and gas projects rose from below 10% to over 35%, retaining billions of dollars that would otherwise have left the economy. In the Caribbean, small island states have shown that policy predictability and standards harmonization can make resilience a regional export. Barbados and Jamaica, for instance, are attracting climate tech manufacturing and data processing investment precisely because they have stable regulatory environment, harmonized certification systems, and competitive energy reforms. These examples show that crisis exposes weaknesses, but they also reveal where reforms can yield the highest returns. Let's talk about building resilience, and because of my background, it will be through manufacturing. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to focus on resilience built on the strength of the productive capacity of our economies, particularly the manufacturing sector. Apart from producing goods, the sector anchors value chains, creates jobs, and shields economies from global shocks. I may bold to say, for Africa and the Caribbean, manufacturing is our most investable path to resilience. Let me explain how. First, local production of our critical inputs, from steel and petrochemicals to packaging and agro-processing, reduces our exposure to global shocks and FX volatility. Second, focusing on improved standard skills. I have 5 minutes. And so what I will do is to quickly race to where I think is important for action. But please, because it's a fairly long one, I would like you to take a look at it as part of the documents that you will inform what the outcomes of this engagement will be. I would like to race to the area where I think is very important for us to see how we can drive this resilience. A robust industrial policy is critical. Incentives and institutions to strengthen productivity, capacity, and safeguard national competitiveness as it equips governments and firms with the tools to anticipate disruptions and mitigate impact and expert shocks. Second is standards and certification. Quality assurance is key to both domestic resilience and global competitiveness. Without reliable standards, domestic institutions fail, and local products cannot access regional and international markets. Local content and supply development. Resilience also requires developing domestic supplies through local content policies and preferential procurement. Industrial clusters. Most economies that have industrialized at speed have leveraged the power of clustering. Financing. Resilience needs capital, patient and blended finance that can absorb forced losses and crowd in the private investors. Who must act? Manufacturers and exporters, investors and bankers, development finances institutions, government and policymakers, SMEs and startups, academics, advisors, and think tanks. Why does this matter now? Ladies and gentlemen, the urgency is clear. The African Continental Free Trade Area and the Caribbean Single Market are reshaping the geography of opportunities. But integration without resilience simply relocates fragility. In 2022, Africa alone imported over 70 billion in manufactured intermediates. effectively exporting jobs and critical values. If just 20% of that production were localized through strategic industrial policies, financing, and supplier development, we will retain over 14 billion annually and create millions of jobs. For investors, this is more than a policy target. It is a market signal. It tells you where domestic demand is anchored, where sectors are ripe for investment, and how localized production can mitigate risk from FX volatility, supply shocks, and global disruptions. The combination of regional integration, rising global instability, and existing industrial gaps makes this the moment to invest in resilient manufacturing, to turn crises into opportunities and volatility into growth. In short, manufacturing resilience is directly tied to investment viability. By investing in resilient manufacturing today, investors not only secure returns, but also strengthen the industrial backbone in Nigeria and in other places. Closing. To build authentic economic resilience, we must deepen our industrial sector and empower its players to withstand internal and external shocks. Governments should anchor demand for locally manufactured goods through procurement and strategic projects, raise local preferences, and address key constraints to growth. Investors and financiers should co-design fast, targeted, blended finance with FX hedging and receivable support, focusing on high-impact sectors like agro-processing and light manufacturing. Industrial leaders and SMEs must map and localize key input dependencies while investing in standards, certification, and supply development. This forum should drive joint industrial partnership, co-financing, and cross-border data sharing, building resilient manufacturing ecosystem across Africa and the Caribbean. Achieving this requires engagement with our political leadership and institutional coordination. Finally, the global economic system has historically been skewed against us, right from the dark ages of slavery and despoilation of colonialism. So resilience is our second nature, and our generation must make it